This is a pine, a black pine, and this one is B&B. It's got the burlap on the ball, and in this case it's got a wire cage that will need to be removed, but that holds the ball together. Don't leave the cage on there. This one has a bit of a leaning trunk. It grew at a lean, but a tree like this, some people might want it. They might want to plant it over the edge of a water feature or pond and have the tree sort of leaning to the side as if it was growing on a mountainside or in the woods. But you can still take a tree like this and tilt it a little bit. You rock the whole root ball and you can get that trunk straightened. So don't let a lean in the trunk stop you from purchasing the tree in every situation where you might want a straighter trunk. This is a black pine again. I believe this is an Austrian black. And in this case, the tree looked really good from the distance, but I came in closer to show you that when you pull back the foliage, you have several leaders twisting through here. Well, you have one coming up through here, and that one needs to either get pruned short or removed at the bottom. And then over here you have a branch that has a very narrow angle. It's very V-shaped that can split off very easily. And the rest of the tree is decent, but with the removal of this left piece here and with the removal of this one going up through the middle, you don't end up with very much of a useful tree if you want to have it structurally sound. So you definitely want to select for future pruning and structural integrity in the tree. This is the lower portion of a deodar cedar. This is a B&B burlap ball again. And down here there's a branch coming out very low, and it's so low that generally it would be removed, this one down here. And you do have the option to leave this branch on the left, and every year little twigs from the right side up in here can get removed a little bit each year, as the one on the left would develop more if you want a second lower large scaffold limb. Some people like that look, so don't let a limb like this very low that will not take out much of the canopy deter you from getting this tree. This branch can be removed, or it can be saved and allowed to develop on the tree with corrective pruning each year. That's your choice. This is a maple tree. I wanted to point out a part of the trunk here in the tree. This is about maybe 5-6 feet off the ground, but right in this area you see two leaders at a very narrow angle that have developed, and really one of those should be pruned off, because after this tree's planted, probably you or I could grab those stems a little bit higher without much effort, just peel it apart as easy as peeling the peel off of a banana. So one of those should come out, or another tree should be selected that just has the one leader and not the two with the weak angle like that. Here is another maple tree, and I'd like to point out on this trunk right here is a crack and bark peeling away in here in an area probably 16 inches high, 14 inches high, and that is sunburn. It could be a frost cracking, but I'm going to take a guess here. It's my opinion that that is a sunburn. That tree is facing the sunset again. It's not in a row that's laid out east-west, it's in a row laid out north to south, and this is on the row that is facing and exposed to the sunset, so there's no trunk protection on the upper part, and it's burned. This trunk once again shows the weakness of the V, where the tree can split apart easily. If there was no other trees available and this was the only one, that could be corrected by attaching a bracing or cabling between the two trunks higher up. But for now, this area here can split very easy with minimal effort. A child could split this tree apart. And this particular one is a quaking aspen. It's not one of my favorites. They tend to have a few issues involved with them, as well as spreading via the root system. But anyway, I'll show you the trunk on this one, and then that's another example of that weakness. This might be one of the more pronounced weaknesses. I was hoping it was a specimen like this one to show you, and the tree's not too hot looking or healthy up above, but nonetheless, when you see a root ball like this, whether it's bagged or the B&B burlap or even a pot, if you see this many sprouts ever coming up from a pot or a root ball around a tree, that will give you an indication of just what you're going to be dealing with in your landscape situation. If it has this many now, you can take a guess as to how many it'll have later. Up in Beaverton, Oregon, one time I saw 3 street trees in a planter strip by the between the sidewalk and the city street that had so many sprouts like this, they had virtually become a ground cover. It was that bad. So anyway, avoid trees that have this many sprouts in the root ball, and sometimes it fits the characteristic of the tree. That's normal for that genus. And so if you can't remember all the trees and all the characteristics, then you just need to look for one characteristic, which is the sprouts coming from the root ball. This is a magnolia tree. This one's nice. It has one stem. The leaves are nice. There's no insects. Inside, we see a relatively decent branch angle. A little bit of a V shape, but not bad. That's a good angle right there. And the one on the right side up here by my little finger has a pretty good angle on that. So this is a good choice. One trunk, good branch angles, no pests or problems, and pretty sturdy in the root ball. This tree is a Sequoia sempervirens. That is a redwood tree, coastal redwood, native to the Pacific Northwest, west coast of the United States. This tree not only has 1 leader stem or trunk, it has 1, 2, and 3. The tree's health is great. There's nothing wrong with its health. If somebody gave me this tree, I would not feel bad about having it. I'd be glad to plant it, but I would reduce it to just the 1 main leader in here. If I was purchasing, I'd rather buy one with 1 leader, as I've mentioned. But if you ended up with a tree like this, if it was the only option, you could remove the first little leader 1 year, and then after this remaining section over here grows for another year, then the next year or two, then this piece could come out here. And again, you need to look and see how much of the canopy is going to come out, but this main section that will remain still has quite a bit of foliage on it as it is. I could remove both of these right now and it would still be a fairly substantial tree. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know it's healthy. It's something that needs to come out eventually, but then you could take that out over time. You do not have to correct everything on a tree all at once, and that's a mistake some people make, is they try and take everything out at one time. Right here is another birch tree, another Himalayan birch. I decided to add one more here. 1 stem, very good. The tree is healthy, and also the angles are beautiful in here, both the spacing of the branches and the angle where you have a little bit of a U shape for wood development. So this is one of the best formed trees out here. This would be a good selection. This is a Raywood ash, which eventually developed very beautiful fall colors, and they have a nice texture in the springtime, a very fine foliage. Interesting about these trees, the lower limbs often develop with the nice wider angles that are desirable, but as you can see a little higher up the tree, right up in that area where the upper branches or leaders are forming and developing there, that the branch angles are bad. And that's a tendency of these trees as they grow older, or in these younger trees here in the nursery, in the upper part of their structure, you'll get that weakness. And these trees are pretty notorious for disintegrating under the weight of snow, ice, even rain and wind. And although they're a beautiful tree, they really get enough damage that I would recommend to steer away from them unless another variety can come out that is structurally more sound. So that's what I'd like to share on this particular tree. That's a Raywood ash. This is a Pyrus chanticleer, flowering pear, and they're pretty notorious for having a lot of the narrow angles. They don't go through maybe the same destruction that a Raywood ash would, but down below is the wide angles that are nice, but typically these trees stay very narrow branched and they can disintegrate, but if you prune yearly, you're fine. This is the trunk on a crepe myrtle, moderately old, not too ancient, but good sized trunk, maybe 1.5 inches diameter. This peeling is okay on here. I showed a tree earlier where the bark was peeling, and it was a birch, and the birches do peel their bark, but they don't peel their bark until the diameter of the stems or trunks becomes maybe 3-4 inches in diameter. So in a tree like this, for the bark to peel is natural for the tree. It's normal. This is not sunburn on here. So you might check into the varieties that you're choosing to see typically when their bark would peel off of there, and if it's a characteristic that you should be looking for or not. So this is not sunburn, and this was a crepe myrtle. It's healthy. This is a European white birch. Down here there's checking or cracking in the bark. This is normal development for this tree. This trunk is about 3 inches in diameter, so that is not a sunburn problem. That is healthy for this tree. It is a normal characteristic. As it gets older, the trunk would cause the bark to start to crack a little bit like that. That's normal.